They will not applaud your transformation. They will resent it. When you become disciplined at a level most people cannot comprehend, you do not inspire them. You threaten them. Your existence becomes evidence against their excuses. Your consistency becomes a mirror reflecting their chaos, and mirrors that show ugly truths get shattered. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries before modern psychology had words for it. He watched disciplined men rise through the courts of Florence, and he watched weak men conspire to destroy them. He documented every pattern, and he left us a blueprint for becoming so internally fortified that external attacks become irrelevant. This is not motivation. Motivation is a spark that dies by Tuesday. This is architecture. We are going to build something inside you that cannot be burned down. But first, I need to give you something you can use tonight. Not philosophy, a weapon. Here is your immediate protocol. It is called the sovereignty hour. Tomorrow morning, before you do anything else, before you check your phone, before you speak to another human, you will take 1 hour for yourself. 60 minutes of complete control. No input, no consumption, no reaction to anyone else's agenda. In this hour, you do 3 things only. 10 minutes of physical movement. Not a full workout. Just enough to tell your body that you are awake and in command. 20 minutes of focused work on your most important project. The thing you keep postponing. The thing that matters. 30 minutes of strategic thinking. You sit with a notebook and you write what you want to build and what is stopping you. No phone, no music, no podcasts, no external voices. Just you, your body, your work, and your thoughts. This hour is not negotiable. It happens before the world gets a vote. It happens before your inbox tells you what to care about. It happens before other people's emergencies become your priorities. Why does this matter? Machiavelli wrote that the prince who relies on fortune is ruined when fortune changes. Most people begin their day in reaction. The alarm is a reaction. The phone check is a reaction. The email response is a reaction. By 9 in the morning, they have made no choices. They have only responded to the choices of others. The sovereignty hour reverses this. You begin each day with an act of self-rule. You prove to yourself, before anyone else awakens, that your agenda matters more than their noise. Do this for 7 consecutive days, not 5, not 6, 7. Miss 1 day and restart the count. This is not punishment. This is calibration. You are teaching your nervous system what consistency actually means. By day 7, something will shift. You will notice that decisions feel easier. You will notice that other people's chaos no longer pulls you in. You will notice that you have more energy, not because you slept more, but because you stopped leaking energy into reaction. This is the foundation. Without this foundation, everything else I teach you will collapse. Now let me tell you why discipline terrifies people. I studied a man who transformed himself over 18 months. He was average in every measurable way. Average job, average physique, average relationships, average ambition. Nothing about him demanded attention. He began with something like the sovereignty hour. 1 protected window each morning. He told no one. He posted nothing. He simply did the work. In month 3, his manager noticed he was finishing projects ahead of schedule. In month 6, his friends noticed he had lost weight and gained something harder to name. A stillness. In month 12, his girlfriend asked if he was having an affair because he seemed like a different person. He was not having an affair. He was having a coup. A silent revolution against the version of himself that had accepted average as inevitable. By month 18, he had changed industries, doubled his income, and ended relationships that no longer served him. The people who once considered him safe began avoiding him, not because he was cruel, because he was no longer controllable. His discipline had made him unpredictable, and unpredictability is threatening to those who relied on his predictability. This is what you are building toward, not a better version of your current self. A replacement. The old architecture demolished. New architecture built from materials the old version did not know existed. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. For years, your soul has been dyed with the colors of distraction, of reaction, of whatever the world splashed onto you. The sovereignty hour begins the process of choosing your own colors. But this is only the entrance. Beyond it lies a fortress you must build piece by piece. Most people never build it. They start. They announce their intentions. They feel the initial momentum. Then life pushes back, and they crumble. You will not crumble, because I am going to show you how the fortress is constructed. Each wall, each gate, each tower. By the end of this video, you will understand the complete architecture. Machiavelli did not write for men who wanted to feel good. He wrote for men who wanted to hold power in a world designed to take it from them. Your internal discipline is the only power no one can take. They can take your job, they can take your money, they can take your reputation. They cannot take your ability to choose your response to anything that happens. That ability is the fortress, and we are about to build it. The first structure you build is not a wall. It is a moat. A moat controls access. It creates distance between the outside world and your inner operations. Without a moat, anyone can approach your gates. Anyone can attempt entry. Anyone can probe your defenses. The Moat of Silence is information control. You stop broadcasting and start observing. Machiavelli advised that a prince should be a great asker of questions and a patient listener to the answers. Notice he did not say the prince should be a great explainer of his plans. The prince gathers intelligence. He does not distribute it. Here is the protocol for building your moat. For the next 30 days, you will implement the signal blackout. You will share nothing about your goals, your progress, or your struggles with anyone except one designated person. If you do not have someone you trust at that level, you share with no one. This means no social media updates about your journey, no casual mentions at dinner, no fishing for encouragement when motivation dips, no complaints when the work is hard. You go dark. This is not about secrecy for its own sake. This is about protecting your psychological energy from premature exposure. When you announce a goal publicly, your brain experiences a simulation of completion. Neuroscience confirms this. The verbal expression of intention triggers reward circuits as if the intention were already achieved. You feel good, and that feeling good reduces your drive to actually do the work. Worse, you have now created external accountability that runs on other people's timelines. They will ask about your progress. They will offer opinions you did not request. They will project their own failures onto your ambitions. Every conversation becomes a leak in your moat. I learned this through failure. Years ago, I announced a business I was building. The idea was strong. The market was ready. I told everyone. I fed on their encouragement like a drug. Every excited response gave me a hit of validation. 6 months later, the business was dead. Not because the idea failed, because I had spent so much energy managing perceptions that I had no energy left for execution. Every time someone asked about progress, I performed progress instead of creating it. The moat was gone. The invaders were inside the gates before I even noticed. Compare this to a project I launched 3 years later. No one knew about it until the day it generated its first revenue. No announcements, no feedback loops, no external pressure. Just quiet, relentless construction in the dark. That project still runs today. The silence was not lonely. It was liberating. I did not have to perform. I did not have to explain setbacks. I did not have to manage anyone's expectations except my own. And my expectations were high enough without additional pressure. Robert Greene identified this as the law of concentration. By focusing your energy on a single point, you gain power. By dispersing your energy across multiple audiences, you weaken. Every conversation about your goals is a dispersion. But the Moat of Silence serves another function. It creates mystery. Schopenhauer observed that the only way to keep a man's respect is to remain in part unknown. When you stop announcing your moves, people begin projecting onto your silence. They wonder what you are building. They notice changes they cannot explain. They sense momentum they cannot measure. This mystery is strategic. It prevents competitors from preparing counterattacks. It prevents saboteurs from identifying weaknesses. It prevents well-meaning friends from offering advice that derails your trajectory. Your silence becomes a form of protection and a form of power simultaneously. Here is the specific structure for your signal blackout. Day 1 through 7. Identify every channel where you currently leak information. Social media platforms, group chats, conversations with colleagues, family dinners. List them all. Day 8 through 14. Create new response scripts. When someone asks what you are working on, your answer is, some projects. Nothing ready to talk about yet. When someone offers advice, your answer is, I appreciate that. I will think about it. You give nothing specific. You take no one's input into your strategic planning. Day 15 through 30. Observe what happens internally. You will notice urges to share. You will feel the discomfort of not receiving external validation. This discomfort is data. It tells you how dependent you had become on other people's opinions. Let the discomfort exist. Do not relieve it by leaking. By day 30, the moat is built. The habit of silence is established. You will find that you have more mental energy because you are not spending it on impression management. You will find that your work improves because you are not distorting it to please an audience. Most importantly, you will feel something new, a kind of quiet confidence that does not need witnesses, a self-trust that exists independent of external feedback. This is the foundation of sovereignty. The man who needs no one's approval is the man who cannot be controlled through approval. The man who shares nothing is the man who cannot be attacked through his revelations. Machiavelli spent years in political exile. His enemies had stripped him of position, of income, of reputation. But they could not strip him of his mind. In that silence, he wrote the works that would influence power for 5 centuries. Your exile is voluntary, but its purpose is the same. You retreat from the noise so that you can build something the noise cannot destroy. The moat is complete. Now we build the walls. A moat without walls is just a wet trench. Walls create the structure that repels invasion. The walls of routine are your daily architecture. They are the non-negotiable practices that hold your life in a shape you chose, rather than a shape circumstances imposed. Machiavelli wrote that men who wish to make a profession of good must fall among so many who are not good. The implication is survival. You will be surrounded by chaos, by temptation, by the disorder of others. Your walls are what keep their disorder from becoming your disorder. Here is the protocol for building walls. You will design what I call the 3 Pillars Day. Each day contains 3 immovable events. These events happen regardless of mood, circumstance, or external pressure. They are the walls. Pillar 1 occurs in the first 2 hours after waking. This is your construction period. You work on building something, not maintaining, not responding. Building, a skill, a business, a body, a mind. This is when your cognitive energy is highest. You do not spend it on email. Pillar 2 occurs in the middle of your day. This is your discipline anchor. A physical practice that reminds your body who commands it. Exercise, cold exposure, a walk with no phone, something that requires your body to obey your mind. Pillar 3 occurs in the final hour before sleep. This is your review and preparation. You assess what happened today. You identify what tomorrow requires. You clear mental debris so it does not follow you into sleep. These 3 pillars are walls. They do not move. When life pushes against them, they hold. Let me tell you about a man whose walls saved him. He was an executive at a company undergoing collapse. Revenue was falling. Layoffs were constant. Every week brought new emergencies. His colleagues were disintegrating, stress eating, drinking too much, snapping at families, performing anxiety as if it were competence. He did something different. He maintained his 3 Pillars Day throughout the collapse. Every morning, he spent 90 minutes on a personal project that had nothing to do with the company. Every midday, he went to the gym regardless of what meeting he missed. Every night, he reviewed his day and prepared his mind for tomorrow. His colleagues thought he was in denial. They could not understand how he remained calm while the building burned. They did not realize that his calm was structural. His walls were holding, while their lack of walls let the fire spread through everything. When the company finally died, he was the only executive with something to transition to. His personal project had become viable. His body was strong. His mind was clear. The others spent months recovering from stress-related illness. He moved forward without pause. His walls had protected him from catastrophe he could not prevent. This is the function of routine. It is not about productivity. It is about sovereignty. When external circumstances become chaotic, your internal structure holds. You have somewhere to stand that does not depend on the ground being stable. Epictetus taught that some things are within our control and others are not. The Three Pillars Day clarifies this distinction daily. You cannot control the market. You cannot control other people's decisions. You cannot control tragedy or fortune. But you can control your first 2 hours. You can control your physical discipline. You can control your nightly review. That control is not nothing. That control is everything. Here is how you build your walls specifically. Week 1. Design your 3 pillars. Write them down with specific times and specific practices. Not exercise in the middle of the day. Specific. 12:30 p.m., 1:30 p.m. Gym, upper body focus. Vagueness is weakness. Week 2. Implement with flexibility tracking. You will miss pillars. You will be tempted to skip. When this happens, note why. Was it external pressure? Internal resistance? A legitimate conflict? Each misses data about where your walls are weakest. Week 3. Adjust and harden. Based on Week 2's data, adjust your pillars to be more defensible. If morning construction keeps getting interrupted by family, wake earlier. If midday discipline keeps losing to meetings, block the calendar permanently. Find the structure that actually holds. Week 4 and beyond. The walls become identity. You stop being a person who tries to maintain pillars. You become a person who maintains pillars. The behavior becomes who you are, not what you do. Nietzsche wrote that the man who has a why can bear almost any how. Your 3 pillars are the how. They are the structure that makes bearing difficulty possible. Without structure, difficulty overwhelms. With structure, difficulty is contained within walls that do not break. But walls can be climbed. They are not the final defense. Inside the walls, you need towers from which to watch. You need the height to see threats before they reach you. This is the next fortification. The towers that allow you to observe your own interior without being captured by what you observe. Emotional surveillance. The discipline of watching yourself feel without being controlled by the feeling. This is where most disciplined systems fail. They build walls, but they do not build towers. And when emotion floods from within, the walls are irrelevant. The enemy was already inside. We must address this vulnerability. We must build the towers of vigilance. The greatest threat to your fortress is not external. It is internal. Your emotions, left unobserved, will open gates you spent months building. Anger will make you say words that destroy relationships you need. Fear will make you abandon projects on the edge of success. Desire will make you pursue short-term pleasure that dismantles long-term power. The towers of vigilance are your emotional surveillance system. They allow you to see what is happening inside you before it controls what happens outside you. Machiavelli understood that the prince must not be ruled by emotion, but must use emotion. Note the precision. He did not say eliminate emotion, he said use it. Emotion is energy. Energy can fuel construction or destruction. The difference is whether you control its direction. Here is the protocol for building your towers. You will implement what I call the observer practice. 3 times per day, you will pause whatever you are doing and conduct a 60-second internal scan. You ask 3 questions. What am I feeling right now? Name it specifically, not bad, anxious, frustrated, restless, resentful, bored. Specific names create distance. Second question. What triggered this feeling? Usually something external preceded the internal state. An email, a conversation, a memory, a physical sensation. Identify the trigger. Third question. What action is this feeling pushing me toward? Feelings are not just experiences. They are directives. Fear pushes you to flee or freeze. Anger pushes you to attack. Desire pushes you to pursue. Identify the directive. This 60-second practice creates the tower. You are above the feeling now, observing it, rather than inside the feeling, controlled by it. Let me tell you about a woman who built these towers and what they saved her from. She was in a relationship that was ending slowly. Her partner had become distant. The conversations had become defensive. Every interaction felt like a battle. Her natural response was to pursue, to chase, to demand explanation, to escalate confrontation. Her feelings were pushing her toward actions that would accelerate the collapse. But she had been practicing the observer protocol for 3 months. When the urge to confront arose, she paused. What am I feeling? Fear of abandonment. What triggered it? His short responses this morning. What action is the feeling pushing? A confrontation tonight demanding clarity. She observed the directive without obeying it. Instead of confronting, she did nothing. She maintained her routine. She did not pursue. She did not withdraw. She simply continued being herself without letting fear dictate her behavior. Within 2 weeks, her partner's behavior shifted. He began initiating conversation again. He began moving closer instead of pulling away. Her non-reaction had created space he needed. Her towers had prevented her feelings from destroying what could be saved. Not every situation resolves this well. Sometimes relationships should end. Sometimes confrontation is correct. The point is not that non-reaction is always right. The point is that reaction should be chosen, not compelled. The towers give you the height to choose. Freud observed that the mind is not a unified entity, but a parliament of competing drives. Your feelings are not you. They are voices in a parliament. Some voices are wise, some are not. The observer practice gives you the speaker's chair. You hear all voices. You obey none automatically. Here is how you build your towers specifically. Week 1. Set 3 daily alarms: morning, midday, evening. When the alarm sounds, stop whatever you are doing and conduct the 60-second scan. Write the answers in a small notebook you carry. Week 2. Review your patterns. After 7 days, look at your notebook. What feelings recur? What triggers repeat? What actions do your feelings consistently push toward? This is your emotional signature. Knowing it gives you power over it. Week 3. Practice interruption. When you notice a strong feeling arising, implement a 90-second delay before any action. Do not suppress the feeling. Do not act on the feeling. Simply wait 90 seconds while observing it. Most emotional urgency dissolves within this window. Week 4 and beyond. The towers become permanent. You develop a background awareness of your emotional state that operates continuously. You notice feelings as they arise, not after they have already driven behavior. Jung wrote about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny and repress. The towers illuminate the shadow. When you observe your anger without judgment, you learn what you actually want. When you observe your fear without suppression, you learn what you actually value. The towers create self-knowledge that suppression prevents. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. His meditations are essentially a journal of observer practice. He recorded his feelings, examined their triggers, and chose responses rather than reactions. He was emperor of Rome, yet his greatest battles were fought inside his own mind. Your battles are the same. External victories are meaningless if internal chaos persists. The man who conquers markets but cannot conquer his own anxiety has built an empire on sand. The towers give you solid ground. They give you the height to see storms before they arrive. They give you the clarity to choose responses that serve your long-term power rather than your short-term emotion. But towers and walls protect something. They are defenses around a center. That center must exist. That center must be defined. This is the keep, the innermost fortification, the core that you protect because it contains what matters most, your standards. At the center of every fortress is the keep, the final stronghold, the place you defend when everything else has fallen. The keep of standards is your non-negotiable core. It contains the specific commitments you will not break regardless of circumstance. Not vague aspirations, concrete minimums. Machiavelli studied what made some rulers survive crisis while others collapsed. He found that survivors had internal anchors that external pressure could not move. They knew what they would die for. They knew what they would never compromise. This clarity made them predictable to themselves while remaining unpredictable to enemies. Here is the protocol for building your keep. You will define your 5 absolutes. These are specific, measurable, binary commitments. You either kept them today or you did not. There is no partial credit. There is no "I tried." Your 5 absolutes must span 5 domains of life: physical, mental, financial, relational, spiritual, or philosophical. 1 absolute per domain. Let me give you examples of strong absolutes. Physical. I will train for at least 30 minutes every day. No exceptions below injury that prevents movement. This is specific. 30 minutes. Every day. The only exception is physical injury that prevents all movement. Not tiredness. Not busy schedule. Injury. Mental. I will read for 20 minutes every day from a book I own. Not articles. Not social media. A book. Specific. 20 minutes. Daily. Books only. No exceptions. Financial. I will track every expense and record it before I sleep. Every single purchase documented. Specific. Every expense. Daily documentation. No exceptions. Relational. I will initiate meaningful contact with one person I care about each day. A call, a message, an in-person conversation. Initiated by me. Specific. One person. Daily. Initiated, not just received. Spiritual. I will spend 10 minutes in silence each day with no input and no task. Just stillness. Specific. 10 minutes. Daily. No input. No task. These 5 absolutes form your keep. When everything else fails, these remain. When life overwhelms, you retreat to the keep and you hold it. Let me tell you about a man whose keep saved his life. He was diagnosed with a condition that would require months of treatment. His business needed attention he could not give. His body was betraying him. His mental state was fragile. Everything external was collapsing. But he had defined his 5 absolutes years before. Physical. Walk for 30 minutes daily. Even on treatment days, even when exhausted, he walked. Sometimes slowly, sometimes holding walls. But he walked. Mental. Read 1 chapter daily. He chose books about recovery, about resilience, about others who had survived what he faced. He read through nausea. He read through fatigue. He read. Financial. Review accounts weekly. His business partner handled operations. He reviewed numbers every Sunday regardless of his condition. He stayed informed. Relational. 1 meaningful conversation daily. With his wife, with friends, with other patients. He stayed connected. Spiritual. 5 minutes of gratitude practice. Every morning he listed what he was grateful for, even when the list felt forced. These absolutes carried him through 8 months of treatment. When doctors asked how he maintained his psychological resilience, he pointed to his 5 absolutes. They gave him something to win each day, something he controlled when so much was uncontrollable. He emerged from treatment with his business intact, his relationships stronger, and his identity solid. The keep had held. Nietzsche wrote that he who has a why can bear almost any how. Your 5 absolutes are both why and how. They remind you what you value, and they give you a way to express that value daily. Here is how you build your keep specifically. This week, define your 5 absolutes. Write them in precise language. Review each one for specificity. If it contains words like try or usually or enough, it is not an absolute. Revise until the language is binary. Yes or no. Done or not done. Next week, test the absolutes. Are they achievable even on your worst days? Absolutes that are too ambitious become failures by day 3. Better to have modest absolutes you keep than ambitious ones you break. You can increase difficulty once the habit is established. Following weeks, track your absolutes. A simple system. Each night you mark whether each absolute was kept. After 30 days, calculate your percentage. Below 90% means your absolutes are either wrong or your discipline is still developing. Adjust accordingly. Ongoing, the keep becomes automatic. You do not think about whether to do your absolutes. They happen because they are who you are. The keep is no longer a practice. It is your identity. Schopenhauer observed that talent hits a target no one else can hit, but genius hits a target no one else can see. Your absolutes are targets only you can see. Others might notice your discipline. They cannot see the specific commitments that generate it. Your keep is invisible to everyone but you. This invisibility is strategic. Machiavelli warned against revealing all your positions. When others know your absolutes, they can attempt to disrupt them. When your keep is private, it remains protected. The moat controls information. The walls create structure. The towers enable observation. The keep protects your core. One fortification remains: the seat of your power, the throne from which you rule yourself. The fortress is built to protect the throne, and the throne is where you sit in judgment over your own existence. The throne of sovereignty is the completion of internal discipline. It is the state where you no longer struggle against yourself because you have unified command. The parliament of competing drives has been organized under a single authority: you. Machiavelli wrote that the prince must learn to be not good when necessity demands. This is often misunderstood as permission for cruelty. It is actually permission for self-rule. You are no longer bound by what others call good. You are bound by what you determine to be correct for your circumstances. Here is the protocol for claiming your throne. You will implement what I call the judgment hour. Once per week, you sit in formal review of your own life, not casual reflection, formal judgment. You are the prince reviewing the operations of your kingdom. The judgment hour has 5 sections. Section 1. Review of the week's absolutes. Did you keep your 5 absolutes? If not, why not? What failed? What will you change to prevent future failure? This takes 10 minutes. Section 2. Assessment of threats. What threatened your sovereignty this week? External pressures, internal weaknesses, temptations that nearly succeeded, failures of discipline you need to address. 10 minutes. Section 3. Evaluation of opportunities. What opportunities for growth did this week present? Did you take them? If not, why not? What opportunities should you create for next week? 10 minutes. Section 4. Strategic planning. What are the 3 most important outcomes for next week? Not tasks, outcomes. What must be true by next Sunday that is not true today? 10 minutes. Section 5. Sovereign's decree. You make one formal decision about your life. One change, one commitment, one boundary, one direction. Write it down as a decree to yourself. Hold yourself to it as law. 10 minutes. The judgment hour takes 50 minutes. It happens at the same time each week. It is not optional. This is court. The sovereign must hold court. Let me tell you about a sovereign I observed. He was unremarkable by external standards. Middle management, modest income, no particular fame or influence. But internally, he had built something extraordinary. Every Sunday morning, he conducted his judgment hour. He had been doing this for 9 years. 9 years of weekly review, 9 years of formal self-assessment, 9 years of decrees issued and kept. The compound effect was visible to anyone who spent time with him. He moved through life with unusual clarity. He made decisions quickly because he had already decided his values. He maintained boundaries effortlessly because he had already judged where his boundaries lay. Problems that derailed others barely registered for him. He had seen similar problems before in his reviews. He had already developed protocols. He was not surprised by difficulty, because difficulty was a regular subject in his court. When I asked him how he maintained such composure, he said something I have never forgotten. I have already met every challenge this week will bring. I met them last Sunday. They are not new. They are just arriving. This is the power of the judgment hour. You process difficulty before it arrives. You build immunity through repeated exposure in controlled conditions. Epictetus taught that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The judgment hour uses this truth strategically. By imagining threats in the calm of your weekly review, you prepare for them before they arrive in full force. Marcus Aurelius began each day imagining the difficult people he would encounter. He prepared his responses before the encounters occurred. When provocation arrived, he had already rehearsed equanimity. The judgment hour scales this practice across your entire life. Here is how you claim your throne specifically. First, schedule your judgment hour, the same time each week. Block it as immovable. The sovereign does not cancel court for lesser matters. Second, create your court documentation, a notebook or document dedicated solely to judgment hours. Each session is recorded. Over time, this becomes a record of your evolution. You can review years of growth. Third, take the judgment hour seriously. This is not journaling. This is not casual reflection. You approach it with formality. Some people light a candle. Some people sit in a specific chair. Some people use a specific pen. The ritual signals to your mind that this is sacred time. Fourth, implement your decrees. A decree without implementation is just a wish. When you decide something in judgment hour, you execute it. Your word to yourself must be law. If you cannot trust your own decrees, you are not sovereign. You are still a subject of your whims. Fifth, review your decrees quarterly. Every 13 weeks, look back at the decrees you have issued. How many were kept? How many were broken? What does this tell you about where your sovereignty is strong and where it is weak? Nietzsche wrote that the man who commands himself is free. The judgment hour is how you learn to command yourself. It is where you practice authority over your own existence until that authority becomes natural. The throne is not comfort, it is responsibility. The sovereign carries the weight of every decision. The sovereign cannot blame others for failures. The sovereign cannot claim victimhood. This weight is what most people avoid. They prefer the comfort of being ruled. They prefer the excuse of external authority. You are choosing differently. You are choosing the weight, and that choice is what will separate you from the herd. The fortress is complete: moat, walls, towers, keep, throne. Now we must discuss what happens when you inhabit it. Let me tell you what changes when the fortress is built. You become quieter, not withdrawn, quieter. You speak less because you have less to prove. You react less because you see more. The constant noise of anxiety and doubt that has hummed in your background for years goes silent. This silence unsettles people. They are accustomed to you seeking approval. They are accustomed to you filling silence with nervous speech. When that pattern breaks, they feel something is wrong, and they are correct. Something is wrong for them. You are no longer predictable. You are no longer controllable. Some relationships will end, not because you chose to end them, because they cannot survive your transformation. Relationships based on your weakness need your weakness to continue. When the weakness is gone, the relationship reveals its true foundation. Sometimes that foundation is solid. Sometimes it was never there. This is the cost. It is not small, but it is the cost of sovereignty. And the alternative, maintaining weakness to preserve relationships built on weakness, is not actually an alternative. It is a slow death disguised as compromise. Machiavelli was exiled from Florence. His friends abandoned him. His career was destroyed. And in that exile, he wrote the works that made him immortal. He could not have written them while playing the game of approval. The exile was necessary. Your transformation may require its own form of exile. But here is what you gain. You gain time. The hours you spent on anxiety, on approval seeking, on reaction to other people's chaos, those hours return to you. You will be surprised how much time opens when you stop managing perception and start building reality. You gain energy. The fatigue you attributed to work or age was actually the exhaustion of constant internal conflict. When the conflict resolves, the energy returns. You will feel younger. You will accomplish more with less strain. You gain clarity. Decisions that once paralyzed you become obvious. When you know who you are and what you value, most decisions are already made. You are not choosing between options. You are recognizing which option aligns with your established position. You gain respect. Not the respect that comes from seeking approval. The respect that comes from being someone who does not need approval. People sense self-sovereignty. They sense the fortress. They respond to it with a deference they cannot explain. And you gain something harder to name, a kind of internal peace that does not depend on external circumstances. Schopenhauer called it the stillness of a man who has reconciled himself with existence. Epictetus called it freedom. Marcus Aurelius called it the inner citadel. It is the feeling of being complete. Not because you have achieved everything, because you have stopped needing to achieve anything to feel whole. The fortress is enough. The sovereignty is enough. Everything else is addition to a base that is already sufficient. This is what terrifies them, not your discipline specifically, your completeness. You no longer need what they have. You no longer compete for what they value. You have removed yourself from their game entirely. They cannot bribe you because you do not want their rewards. They cannot threaten you because you have accepted their worst outcomes. They cannot manipulate you because your buttons no longer exist. You become, in Machiavellian terms, a prince who has ceased to depend on fortune. You have built a state within yourself that fortune cannot destroy. Let me give you the 90-day protocol to build this fortress. Days 1 through 30. Build the moat. Implement the signal blackout. Go dark on your ambitions. Share nothing. Learn to work without witnesses. Days 31 through 60. Build the walls and towers. Implement the 3 pillars day and the observer practice. Create your daily structure and your emotional surveillance system. Days 61 through 90. Build the keep and claim the throne. Define your 5 absolutes. Begin your weekly judgment hour. Establish sovereignty over your interior. By day 90, the fortress exists. Not as strong as it will be in year 2. Not as strong as it will be in year 5. But existing, functional, yours. From that base, everything becomes possible. Career transformation, physical transformation, relationship transformation, not through struggle, through structure. The fortress enables what chaos prevents. This is the path. It is not easy. Easy paths lead to common destinations. This path leads somewhere most people will never go. If you have watched this far, you are not most people. You have demonstrated a capacity for sustained attention that puts you in a small minority. That capacity is the same capacity required to build the fortress. You already have what is needed. You simply need to direct it. Begin tomorrow. The sovereignty hour. 60 minutes before the world gets a vote. Then continue. 30 days of silence. 30 days of structure. 30 days of sovereignty. By day 90, you will not recognize yourself. But more importantly, neither will they. And their confusion, their unease, their strange new respect will confirm what you have become. Someone who can no longer be moved by their noise. Someone who has built something they cannot touch. Someone who has learned what Machiavelli learned in exile. That the only true power is power over yourself. And that power, once built, cannot be taken. Subscribe. The next video breaks down the advanced protocols for the judgment hour, the specific assessments that separate amateurs from sovereigns. You will want to see it. The fortress awaits. Build it.